We're going to go ahead and get started here. You know, you weren't going to come to a mobile event this year without hearing something about beacons. We probably had more submissions for beacon presentations than you can't imagine. Beacons offer a great opportunity in the mobile space, opportunities that go beyond just giving you messages or giving you coupons, which is something we always default to. But we're going to deliver a coupon. There's so much more to that, and we're going to hear a little bit more about beacons from Craig Isaacson from Sundog Interactive.
Craig.
Sorry, Craig.
Sorry. Close enough.
Thank you.
My fault.
Like Phil said, my name is Craig Isaacson. I'm a systems architect. I'm with Sundog Interactive. I've been there for about 5 years now. We do a lot of cool stuff within the marketing and technology realm. We really integrate marketing and technology to build some great applications and do a lot of cool stuff for our clients, including like marketing, content, strategy, that kind of stuff. So I work mostly on the technology side. We have offices in Minneapolis here, as well as Fargo and Denver. Our main office is in Fargo, which is where I work, and most of the technology people work. So we're going to be talking about using and implementing iBeacons, and I can already see there's one sitting right there on a computer, Eskimo brand. So how many people here have actually used or are familiar with iBeacons themselves? So about half or so. Okay. In this presentation, we're going to go over the iBeacons themselves. We're going to go over what they are, what they can do, more importantly, what they can't do, the ranges, different use cases, and different examples. We'll actually go into a little bit of code on implementation on the beacons themselves as well. So what are beacons? Beacons are essentially just standalone Bluetooth low energy devices. And all they do is constantly transmit Bluetooth low energy signal. What I have here is an Eskimo beacon. At Sundog Interactive, we use the Eskimo beacons quite a bit. When we first started looking into beacons, these were the most fleshed out, had the best SDK, worked with both iOS and Android. So we kind of went with those, and they've been working out really well for the implementations that we've been doing. So the beacons themselves broadcast a number of different things. They have their own UUID, a major key and minor key, for identifying the beacons. So you can use that for knowing what beacons you're actually around. So as you can see here, the phone I chose to represent the phone side of things is the Nexus 6. So even though there is an I in front of the beacons, it is cross-platform, so anything that can get this transmission from the beacons themselves can determine the distance and different things of that nature from the beacon. So the beacons are accurate within feet, so you're going to know when you get in the range of the beacon, you're going to know when you're far, near, immediately next to the beacon. So immediate, you're talking about a foot, and we can get into that in further slides. The beacons themselves are low energy, so since they work on Bluetooth LE and they're just constantly transmitting a signal, the signal isn't super powerful, so it doesn't use a lot of data or a lot of a battery. So these Eskimos that we use, they come with a single battery inside of them, and it's not replaceable, but they do last almost a full 2 years on a standard signal. And you can always customize the signal as well within the beacon to save power as well. The beacons can provide a customized user experience and really give your app a more personalized feel based off of the context of the user with the application of where they are. I forgot to let you know that if you have any questions at all, feel free to just let me know. There should be some time at the end, but we can take questions during as well. So now we're going to get into the ranges of the beacons. So when you're thinking about ranges with the iBeacons themselves, there's essentially 5 different data points that you can get with the beacons. So you can get notified on entry, so when you enter the beacon's range. You can also be notified when you no longer can view the beacon, so you're exiting the beacon's range. And there's also a way of ranging the beacons themselves, so you can know how far you are from the beacon itself. So like I said, there's near, far, and immediate. So far, you're looking at about 210 feet. You can know the range of the beacon. That's if the beacon's broadcasting at full power. Near, you're looking at about 10 feet, and then immediate, 1.5 feet to about a foot, or even sometimes closer, depending on the power you're transmitting at.
Can one beacon at one setting differentiate those two things, or can your device differentiate?
Yeah, all the smarts for that is going to be on the device.
Okay.
So the beacons, all they're doing is transmitting the signal. They say what power they're transmitting at, and then your device, based off of that power, there's some magic in the background that calculates the distance based off of the signal strength to the power that the beacon's transmitting. So, like I said, at Sundial we use the Estimote beacons. There's a whole bunch of different brands, so it helps to maybe research which ones would work best for your situation. So the Estimote beacons, they have two different types. There's the regular beacons, like this one that you see here. This one is approximately $30. It has basically a sticky silicone on the back. It'll sit there and it'll stick to any surface you stick it on. And if it gets dirty, you can just clean it off and it'll stick again. And they also have these new devices that are stickers. They're very similar to the regular beacons. They're just a lot smaller, so they don't broadcast quite as strong a signal. But they're a lot more cost effective, and they are really trying to push these for nearables and different types of things like indoor mapping and that stuff. So if you do need beacons with external power, you can get those. Estimote does not offer those, but there are some available, and those usually cost right around the $40 range. And one thing to keep in mind with the beacons is they are a physical device, so you do need to physically install them in your locations. So that's always something to keep in mind. Since it is broadcasting a radio wave, the structure that you install it on is going to affect how well that signal is passed. So if you're trying to get through glass, that could affect the accuracy of your app itself, and different things like walls and penetrating through different walls of that nature too. Yeah, this time I'm going to start a quick demo, just kind of show you how it works here. So this is just the Estimote demo. As you can see, it's just going out and looking for all the beacons within range. And it kind of shows you the different ranges. So we have the immediate, near, and far. And I can see your beacon is in the far range. So we're picking up this purple one, and as I move it away, it changes the distance so the app knows where you are in relation to that. Then you can also get into the beacons if you actually have registered the beacons with your account in Estimote. You can get in and you can actually see all the data for the beacons themselves. You can actually manage the beacons here as well. So you can change the power that's using for the beacons, and you can update the major and minor keys and basically make the beacon, set it up how you need for your installation. And another cool thing about the beacons, so I have a iOS device here. Since iOS developed it, or Apple developed it, they actually have it so you can emulate being a beacon on the app itself, or on your phone. So your phone can be a virtual beacon, and you can use that as well. So there are different applications you could use that for, and different kind of contexts you can use that for your application to better the user experience. Yep, so this app that I just showed is just the demo app that Estimote provides. So it's cross-platform on both iOS and Android. To do the virtual beacon, you can do that in code yourself as well. I won't get into that today, but that's something you could look into if you need to. So when you're developing with iBeacons, this graphic here is kind of borrowed from an Internet of Things graphic, so it just kind of shows basically the 5 data points with apps where you can really use Internet of Things as well as iBeacons and those types of things to really enhance the user's experience. So these are just kind of a generic list of different things that you can use iBeacons in. I know a lot of people simply think that iBeacons are used for retail stuff, but I mean the way you can use them is pretty much endless. So I'm going to go through quick a few use cases that are actually in production right now for different things. So South by Southwest, they implemented beacons for their conferences. So when you get to a session, they had a beacon on the doorway. So when you walk in, the app would know that you walked into a session. They could use that to present you a notification. And in that notification, it says welcome. And then when you click on the notification, it brings you into basically a context-specific chat room for that session that you walked into. So they made it social per the context of your application. And they also streamlined the registration process. So you imagine sitting in line for, let's say, an hour. I know we've all been to conferences that take forever. You're just sitting in line, so by the time you get up there, they need more information from you. But what they did at South by Southwest was implemented beacons close to the registration, so as you got closer, you get a notification on your application. You can go ahead and fill out all the pertinent information that you needed to, and then once you did that, you'd walk up to the counter, and you'd already have everything done, and you'd be able to just walk on through and make the whole registration process a lot more streamlined and smooth. Another cool area, there's a few museums in Europe that are actually doing a lot of stuff with iBeacons. So they're doing interactive content for artwork and visitors. So essentially you walk up to a piece of art, your phone knows what piece of art you're close to, so you can get all the information for that piece of art itself. So it knows the context of the painting or art you're looking at. So this really helps and improve the aesthetics of the museum itself, so you wouldn't have all those different readings all around each piece of art. And you can have self-guided tours, so as you go by, it basically get information for different sections of the museum that you're in. You can have a venue check-in, so as you walk in, it checks you in. And one of my favorite things about beacons is doing the analytics, so you know where the users are spending most of their time at the artworks or exhibits, and you can tailor how you're going to present that information to the visitors based off of the analytics of where they spent the most time. You know which one's most popular. That really helps with providing the best marketing materials to your users and getting the most bang for your buck. And then gamification. I think this one was more kind of like at Google I/O 2 years ago, they did a scavenger hunt with NFC cards. So it's pretty much the same thing, only with iBeacons. You can basically gamify it any way you want, either by having the beacons on people's persons or in the different locations as well. One of the cooler things I've seen is the hotels. So let's say you have the hotel app, you've actually went on the app, paid for your room. So when you walk into the hotel, you walk past a beacon, so your app knows that you're in the hotel, automatically checks you in. So at that time, it makes it so when you walk up to your room, your door has a beacon on the door. Go ahead, walk by the door, unlocks the door just because you have your phone, and you're able to get into your room without having to do anything at all. So another area where hotels are using iBeacons is managing staff productivity. So imagine your housekeeping staff. You can see where they're spending the most time, if there's any hiccups, so you can change the how much staff you have per room or that sort of thing, so you know more about how to run your business that way. And probably the thing where you've seen the most information for iBeacons would probably be around malls and that sort of thing. So there's more than just retail that you can improve with malls. So like at the Mall of America, they have multiple different parking areas. You don't really have GPS signal because of the concrete structures above you, so you could have beacons on each pillar. You could have a mall app that simply knows where you parked. So you could constantly, if you park there, just hop out of your car. When you're in your mall, say, where's my car? It'll tell you how to get there. And that kind of leads us into the indoor mapping. So you could have indoor mapping throughout the whole mall itself, pull up the mall app, so you want to go to a certain restaurant or store, and it automatically give you directions based off of your location. So it's all done in the context of where you are at the time. And then you could also serve time-sensitive deals. So simply like walking past a retail shop, and then you get a 50% off coupon. That's kind of the thing that we've all been accustomed to with iBeacons. So Now we're going to get into how typical beacon architecture works. So this is what us at Sundog have found to be the best way to build for beacons. So essentially you have your beacon, you have your mobile device, and then you have a back-end server. While you don't technically need the back-end server to get the beacons to work, that's the best way to provide context and value to your users, as well as allows you to grab analytics. So the way it typically works is you'd open your app. The app would talk to the server, ask the server what beacons that it should start looking for. So then it starts looking for those beacons. Once we hit one of those beacons, we can then tell the server, hey, I just got to one of these beacons, what do I do? The server tells the phone what action to take. It could be, well, now that you're in the range, wait till you're this distance away, then perform this action. And then at that time when it sends back the action, it's also logging the activity, so we can use that in our analytics when we're doing our reporting on what our users are doing. Any questions on that at all? Sure.
I assume there's an alternate architecture where you don't really rely upon your server, where your app does all the work and maybe goes and generates a third-party server?
Yep, there could be something like that, I think. So the question was, is there a way to use a third-party server with your app for the beacons? I know there are some cloud offerings where the beacons are managed on some third-party cloud server, but typically you would own the beacons that you're building the apps for. There might be some other service where they have beacons that you can, a list of beacons that you can reference, and then base what you do in your app based off of that. That's just not something I've seen. So when you're developing for iBeacons, so like I said, we use the Estimote beacons. I would suggest checking them out. They have a really nice SDK. You can see that at Estimote/API. So they have an Android and iOS SDK. They're both fairly identical. So when you're using one, you could really port almost the same code back to the other one with the same flow, just different syntax. And one other thing that they have is a pretty nice indoor mapping SDK for iOS. I haven't had a chance to really give it a shot, but it looks like it could be pretty interesting. So we're just going to go through how to basically get your app running and how you get it to be looking for beacons. Oh. Okay, that slide's a little out of order. So first we're going to hit up on the Android app. So if you remember the demo app that I showed you, we basically just were looking for the beacons that were in the range that we were at. So to develop our Android, basically we have to get app permissions to use the Bluetooth on our device. So within our manifest, we simply specify that we're going to use the Bluetooth and Bluetooth admin permissions. And then with Estimote, they have a beacon service. So this service is what's actually going to be doing all the work for monitoring for the beacons and what we're going to reference in our code to look for the beacons themselves. So with Android, before we actually start scanning, we have to create a couple listeners. And the Android SDK is just a little bit different than the iOS, where we have to set the background scan period. So since it is using Bluetooth Low Energy, it doesn't use a lot of power to do the scanning. So we've done apps at 5 seconds, 25 seconds, and there really isn't a noticeable difference on battery life for the application throughout the day. But so really with this, a lot of times you'll incorporate things like geofencing before you actually turn on the scanning for the beacons themselves. So if you have a group of beacons that are in a specific location, you can basically wait till you hit that geolocation to turn on the scanning. That's another way of just saving the battery life. So in here we're basically setting up monitoring listeners. So we set one up for when we enter the region and also when we exit the region. So when we do enter or exit, we basically just post a notification that we entered or exited the region. And then to start monitoring, we simply have the Estimote Beacon Manager, which is that main class in that Estimote Beacon service. And then we basically start a new one, and when the service is ready, we tell it to start monitoring for that region that we passed it. So that region could be anything from basically a hard-coded beacon or beacons that we got from the server itself. So then, once we do start monitoring those listeners, when we actually hit those locations or get inside the beacons, those will actually fire off and do the post notification basically for entered or exited. So other than monitoring, there's another thing called ranging. So this one's a little more intensive, where we actually find out how close we are to the beacon itself. So basically this is the same thing. We start ranging for a region, and when we do, it's going to start looking for that region, and it basically checks to see how far we are from that region itself. So this is the bit of code that was from the demo that we showed on the app. So we set a ranging listener, and when the beacon gets ranged, we find out how far it is, and then we update the distance of the beacon on that little graphic for the radar. So it's actually fairly simple on setting it up and finding out where you are in relation to the beacons. So the real work is determining how to manage that and how to perform specific actions for that beacon or multiple beacons. Any questions on the Android side of things? Sure.
Of course I have a bunch. But,
Yeah, no problem.
The ranging, is that purely a function of received signal strength?
I believe so. It's also using the UUID and major key and minor key. But I believe it's...
That will give you range. The range is...
Yeah, that'll give you the beacon. And then based off of that, it uses that range to find the distance, or the signal strength to find the distance. I guess I'm not 100% sure exactly what the magic is behind that, but that's kind of obfuscated from or abstracted out from the actual code that's used to implement it.
Does it feel like it works reliably in the real world? I mean,
Yeah, it works pretty good.
Really complex propagation here.
Yeah, it's not 100%. I wouldn't say by any means, but it's really close. So every now and then you might see where it might think it's like a certain distance when it actually isn't. But from what we've seen, it's almost. I mean, it's really close to being fully accurate. So now we're going to hop into the iOS side of things. So this is very similar to Android. So basically you have to have permission to use the Bluetooth on the device itself. So this NS location always usage description. This is what's going to be presented to the user when they or when your code for the beacon monitoring or ranging gets fired off. So they basically say with that pop-up, they allow you to use the Bluetooth. And this could be anywhere from the app delegate or the view controller base, depending on how your app is set up. And then we also have to require the background modes. These are just the background modes that SNOT requires for the SDK to run. App communicates with accessory, app shows data using core Bluetooth, and app communicates using core Bluetooth. So this is a demo app that I did a while back. So basically, this is using that same server architecture. We basically get a list of beacons that we want to start monitoring for from the server. We basically instantiate some new estimate beacon regions, and then there's a flag on those regions where you can say to notify an entry, notify an exit. So we'll go ahead and get notified when we actually enter and exit those beacons. And then we basically tell our beacon manager, same as the Android beacon manager, to start ranging for those beacons. So once that happens, as soon as we get within range of those beacons, they'll pop up in the entry or exit, depending on the situation that happened. So as you see, we do have the did enter and did exit region delegate methods. Those get called when those triggers get met, and then within those, that's where you could have basically call out to a server to find out what we do once we do enter, whether it be start ranging or whether it be just post a notification or send the user to a specific point in the app. But either way, we can monitor that and we can log that on the server to provide analytics of where our users are going and try and use that to determine the best experience for them with whatever app we're actually building. So then if you do start ranging, when you do range a beacon, this delegate method did range beacons gets called. So what this code's doing is just looping through the beacons that were ranged. If the beacon that was ranged is the one that we told it to start ranging for, it basically just checks the proximity from the server that we got to be notified on a specific proximity against the actual proximity that the beacon is. And then if it does, it simply just calls handle beacon notification. That could be anything. So that's basically the code that you would have on your own to either show a notification or open a section in your app, or even just record that the user got to that location. So any questions on the iOS side of things?
I guess I have kind of a specific question.
Sure.
So can you transmit beacons in the background on iOS?
I mean, can you be looking for them in the background?
Not looking for them. Like, can you have your phone transmit like a beacon to my?
Do a virtual beacon in the background?
Yeah.
I think so. I haven't done that, but I think that wouldn't be a
So like
problem.
while you're walking around, someone's like if you're in a hotel or something, they can look at you and they'll. No, not like in a bad
Well,
sense.
yeah, I'll
So we can give you specific advertising sense.
Oh, yeah.
We have gaming invitations too.
Oh, yeah, for like finding people based off where they are with the beacons. And
Because last I checked it.
oh, I can look. I haven't actually looked to see if that was possible, but I do know that I think the virtual beacons is only available with iOS. I don't think it's available in Android. Sure.
I have a more general question. So, for this to work, my smartphone has to be looking for a particular UUID, right? If it goes past 100 different UUIDs it's never heard of, it's not going to do anything.
Well, when you tell it to, or basically in that architecture, you would basically ask the server for the beacons you want to be monitoring for. So only when those beacons that you tell it to monitor for are actually hitting your app, then it knows to run that code. But yes, your phone is going to be using Bluetooth. It's going to be looking for the beacons. But if it sees ones that don't match the ones that you told it to look for, it's just going to disregard those.
So there's no way for a beacon, at least at this point, for a beacon, for a particular UUID to say, I want the user to download this app so I can talk to it.
Nope, it would have to be baked into the app to begin with. So, yeah, so that's one consideration when building. So the beacons themselves, all they do is just broadcast a signal. There's really no smarts or anything behind them at all.
Maybe you need to sparse in the phone, does it
Yep.
say? Well, does Apple have, I mean, you're supposed to go to Apple to get the UUID, right?
They come, if you order from Estimote, and I've heard from other beacon manufacturers, they come with the predefined UUID. So the predefined one is specific to the manufacturer of the beacon. But for security measures, there's actually ways to have the beacon be, or have the UUID be rotating. So then Estimote would actually handle that in their SDK. They make it essentially secure so the UUID is always changing, and then the SDK knows that that's still their UUID. So then you'd be using the major key and minor key to determine what beacon it actually is. Great question, so thanks guys. Sure.
How directional are these? So like you gave the example of putting them in a doorway when you walk into the room. Is it not going to get anyone just walking past the room?
It could. I mean, that's part of where the range comes in. So you can set it to low power, so you'd have to be within like 4 feet to actually get the signal.
Okay, so just put it like right inside. Of it.
Yep. Or you could even have one on the inside and one on the outside. And then once you hit both of them, then it would know that you made the transition into the room. So yeah, there's all sorts of different things you can do from that nature. So a quick wrap up. Beacons are awesome. They're pretty quick to develop for. I don't know if the code is pretty simple. So I guess the hard part is really determining what to do with the beacons themselves. And once you do know, it's pretty easy to integrate into your app. And there are limitless possibilities. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, I'm Craig Isaacson. Thanks.